Two other men, both of them criminals, were also led out to be put to death with Jesus. When they came out to the place called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there, and the two criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, they don't know what they are doing." They divided his clothes among themselves by throwing dice. The people stood there watching, while the Jewish leaders made fun of him. He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah whom God has chosen. The soldiers also made fun of him. They came up to him and offered him cheap wine, and said, "Save yourself if you are the king of the Jews." Above him were written these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." The other one, however, rebuked him, saying, "Don't you fear God? You received the same sentence he did. Ours, however, is only right because we are getting what we deserve for what we did. But he has done no wrong." And he said to Jesus, "Remember me, Jesus, when you come as king." Jesus said to him, "I promise you that today you will be in paradise with me."
This person's story is found in the book of Luke, and it is an incredibly precious story. It could be the most incredible story in the Bible. There were three men. Now let me tell you about this guy. He let the small sins in his heart grow and grow until they were out of control. His heart was full of selfishness, lies, anger, and greed. If this shirt shows us what his heart was like, it was full of mess and muck. This man was a thief, and more than just taking people's stuff, he'd hurt and killed people to get what he wanted. The worst of criminals. Then there was this guy, and he had the same problem. The sin in his heart had spiraled out of control. He didn't care who he'd hurt. He did what he wanted, and he took what he wanted. Like the other man, he was a thief and a murderer as well. If this shirt shows the sin in this man's heart and his life, then it would also be a big mess. But these men lived years ago, when the punishment for the worst criminals was to be nailed to a wooden cross and left to hang there until you died. These two men were up there because they'd been caught and they were being punished. But there was a third man, this man in the middle, and his name was Jesus. Let me tell you about him. Well, there's nothing to write. There's no mess on his shirt because there was no sin. There's no lies, no selfish acts, no time when he wanted his own way and he did it. Jesus had lived a perfect life, and yet here he was, nailed to a cross along with the worst of the sinners. All three men were put on crosses to die. The two criminals were being punished for things that they had done wrong. Jesus was being punished when he had done nothing wrong. It wasn't fair. As they were close to death, they had one last conversation. This man on the right said, "Hey Jesus, if you're some big saviour, do something impressive. Save yourself and us." But the man on the left said, "You should fear God. We are getting the punishment that we deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus, remember me when you go to your kingdom." See, this man knows he's a sinner. He knows that he's done so many things wrong and that he must be punished for them. But he also knows that Jesus is a saviour. He's saying, "I'm helpless. I can't do anything. I can't save myself. You are my only hope." And the man central said, "Listen, what I say is true. You will be with me in paradise today." What Jesus said to the man is amazing. He said he would be with him in paradise. And that should be impossible. But it isn't. And that's why Jesus is here. On the cross, the perfect Jesus took the punishment that our sin deserves. It's like he put on all the messy sin of the others and was punished for it. Jesus did that so that the sinners like us can be forgiven. The criminal knew that Jesus was his only hope. He trusted Jesus to save him, and Jesus will do the same for anyone who asks him. But there's more. The criminal is not just forgiven. Did you notice that Jesus promised the criminal paradise today? He wasn't just forgiven, he was also given Jesus' perfect life. All of Jesus' perfection was now his too, so that he could walk into God's perfect paradise, heaven. That's true for me and you and anyone else who asks him to. This criminal's on the left, it was his last day on earth, but it was also his first day forever with Jesus in heaven. He gave his sin to Jesus and got Jesus' perfect life. Sadly, the other criminal on the right, he kept his sin. He didn't trust Jesus to save him. Listening to what that story says reminds me that I am someone who made a mess of my life as well. I can't do anything to make my life pure and mess-free. I can't do anything to make myself perfect for heaven. No matter what I do, I deserve the opposite. My only hope is Jesus. Only he can take away my sin and gives me his perfection in its place. What good news it is that Jesus can do that for us. He is our only hope of heaven. Jesus is the only Saviour, and this is the miracle of good news of Easter.